So, what delightful person have we got today? That's new. What's going on, buddy? What do you want to talk about? Well, I disagree, but I admire your candor. I have no idea what he's trying to say. He appears to be talking in some kind of moon language. Can anyone help me? Please. Oh, it's a metal song. Awesome. Well, that was fun. Okay, so seriously now, what do you want to talk about, pal? Any metal fan can't be all bad.
We are being told over and over that there's an overpopulation problem, but it's the opposite.
I stand corrected. Fine, what's your reasoning for that then, mate? Please, don't let it be stupid.
It's true that the world's population is growing and it's over 7 billion, but that's because it's illusionary.
I have to jump the gun a bit here because I've watched further ahead and it's not really clear what he's trying to say right here. He's saying the world is an illusion, that when people refer to the world, that it's merely an idea about how our planet is made up and doesn't reflect reality, or Earth as he describes it. Of course, he has nothing to back that up, but I thought I would make it clearer what he's babbling about for the sake of brain.
It's made up numbers and letters which make up names.
You know, all numbers and letters are inherently made up. You weren't born Sphere 3 Ridge. Interesting name, by the way. I'm sure that's the name your parents gave you, and they had to make it up too. Clearly.
So they can add any kind of amount to the system that they want. Any kind of names. The Earth's population, however, is decreasing. It's under 1 billion.
Okay, so your assertion is the world, as you describe it, is a fictional construct, and they make up whatever numbers they want. And certainly don't do surveys and check census data, and to be fair, do use some estimation. They don't do any of that. But your real Earth model, you have accurate data and you know for a fact that not only is the population under 1 billion, it is also decreasing. Well, honestly, I can't wait to see your sources because they must be incredible. Literally. Wait, this is just a bunch of links to your personal shit. I don't believe it. You wouldn't be pulling this out of your arse, would you? Not you, Sphere 3 Ridge. You wouldn't do that to me, would you?
The world is based on things which we cannot sense.
I mean, there's a lot of shit we can't sense, or at least can't sense well. We have quite a narrow capacity to sense the colour spectrum, as we can't see infrared or ultraviolet, for example, although we can detect them using technology. It's almost like humans, as they are pretty limited in their senses, and just because we can't sense something is not a good reason to say that it doesn't exist.
Such as society, which is an idea. It's impossible to sense it in any way.
Wait, what? Yes, you can, you fucking simpleton. Look, definition. Society. The aggregate of people living together in a more or less ordered community. You can go right now, find a small village with a chief or a mayor or whatever they want to call it, and literally see a society. You could follow its members around and follow its functions in its entirety. It may technically be an idea, but you can absolutely detect it. And saying you can't is the height of sophistry. You have come up with an idea and you think it sounds really smart and haven't bothered to even test it, have you? God damn, that pisses me off so much more when people could easily test their ideas within meters of themselves and don't even bother. Grr, sir. Grr to you.
Money, which is impossible to sense in any way. Also not touch.
Apart from, all the ways we have to hold and transfer wealth. Look, I do actually understand what you're trying to say here, but it's nowhere near as clever as you think it is. Because these things exist. Just because they aren't an inherent part of nature doesn't mean they don't exist. When you say money, we all know what you mean. And even without money, trade economies have existed forever, and they are pretty much always held up largely by one particular good, usually some kind of food product, that for all intents and purposes is the money, before that society comes up with some kind of fiat currency. The thing would be rice or wheat or whatever. People would trade that, and the amount of that you had would be a way of denoting how wealthy you were. So what I'm trying to say is, stop. This isn't big or clever and makes you sound super dumb.
Watch my video Existence if you want to learn what things actually exist.
Well, I would, but I can't find it in your mess of videos and you don't link it. But I'm sure I need some rando's video telling me what things actually exist. And no, I'm not going to go into existential type nonsense. I have not the time nor the energy for that shit.
Persons are also made of things. It's nothing you can sense because it's the mask that everybody wears in everyday life. It's the way they dress and act. It's the code that everybody lives by, the rule.
I would really love to know what you think sense means, because all senses are the things our body can do to detect its surroundings. You can sense someone's personality by talking to them and sensing what they say because hearing, or sense their personality reflected in how they dress and choose to present themselves because eyes. If your definition of sense is some supernatural, spiritual mumbo-jumbo, I'm going to need you to cut that shit out right now.
So those two things are not comparable. It's something completely else, the earth and the world.
I don't even... What?
We are supposed to believe that our cities have millions of people, and Berlin, which is where I am at right now, has over 3 million people.
Yes. Why is that so hard for you to believe? Have you ever been to a city centre? There are countless numbers of residences all around. I mean, look, if you don't believe the numbers they tell you, why don't you go out and count the number of homes? There's nothing stopping you, and then you can figure out the average number of people in those households, and then you can figure out a bloody good estimate of how many people are in Berlin. You know, like they do. This is such an idiotic line of reasoning because you could literally go out and take your own numbers. Or hell, just take a look at the size of Berlin itself. You know what? I think you might be right. It's tiny. 3.7 million, more like 9. Am I right?
And I would be really surprised if it's even half of that. And that goes for all the major cities.
Do you know what that is? That is an argument from incredulity. It's nothing but you saying, I don't believe it, because you don't understand it, therefore it's wrong. If you had some form of, I don't know, evidence or research or anything, you might actually have a leg to stand on.
I added up the numbers of the most populated cities, towns in Germany, the 20 most populated, and it came to the number of 15 million. So I am supposed to believe that around 50 million people live outside of the cities.
Yes, you fucking cretin. There are 2,060 towns and cities in Germany. If you only add up the rest of the towns and cities with a population over 100,000, of which there are around 60, excluding the top 20 you've already mentioned, you get well over 10 million more people. You don't think we can divide 30 million people over their 1,980 towns and cities? Do you? You absolute fucking parody of a thinking life form?
You drive around there, all the houses are empty.
Well, that's fucking creepy. Not the supposedly empty homes, but the fact that you apparently go looking in them. Pretty sure that's some kind of peeping Tom illegal shit in most places.
Villages are dying. Nobody supports farming anymore, so there's no work.
What are you talking about? Agriculture is still incredibly important to support our expanding population. And yes, they are still generally expanding no matter your inability to brain. And B, not all villages rely on farming for their upkeep. And certainly not basically any town, which have way higher populations than villages as well, by the way.
Life nowadays is based in the cities and surrounding it.
I don't live in a city, not even in a town directly bordering one. I live in a place that, like many, is part of a group of towns. Do we have cities nearby? Sure. But to assert that all people's lives revolve around cities is ignorant at best. In fact, many industries move away from large cities because of how many people are there, making those places desirable and expensive, etc. Yes, some industries rely on those populations, but many don't. And shockingly, towns tend to spring up or are revitalized by those relocated businesses. God damn it, do you know anything about anything?
When we are in the center of any kind of city, it's overwhelming to our senses when we see thousands of people at once. And it may seem, because we get told that there's actually millions of people, but that's the only reason we actually believe it.
Yeah, it's not like there are tens of thousands more people in those buildings that you can't even see. And also, why is that such a common argument with you lot? You believe what you're told, LOL. Well, no, actually. When I want to know something, I look into it, research and verify what I can. Funnily enough, for the most part, it checks out. But it's okay if you just believe things you're told, say on idiotic conspiracy websites. Maybe you might think about that projection on your part.
It's possible that the Earth's population really was over 1 billion sometime before the official World War I. But they are telling us that it increased by 5 billion in the last not even 100 years.
Right, here's your problem. When you hear something and think, oh wow, that sounds a little bit unbelievable, instead of, say, asking how and why they came to that conclusion, you decide you must know better and seek information that confirms your presupposition that you are right and literally everyone else is wrong. You're really piloting my testicles on this one, because you could so easily learn about the things that have caused this increase. I mean, you stand there holding what I assume is a smartphone, a computer so powerful that it pisses all over a computer from just 2 decades ago, and you carry it in your pocket. But you don't think that might mean we could be getting a little bit better at things like, say, keeping people alive for increased periods, thus pushing the population and life expectancy up? No, that would just make too much sense, wouldn't it?
Out of nowhere. This is completely impossible.
It's not out of nowhere. You're just denser than the shit from a pig with an all-clay diet.
I'll tell you why, if you never thought about this.
Well, you are the expert on not thinking about things.
Human longevity is at an all-time low.
Are you taking the piss?
That alone completely disproves the lie. This is documented history. We used to live more than double as long in the primitive times.
Are you trying to tell me that people used to live for up to 200 years? Can you please tell me where I can find the skeleton of an ancient human who was hundreds of years old? I would love to see that. And it would be a fucking breakthrough and change how we look at the development of humans. Unless, of course, you're pulling yet more nonsense out of your backside with absolutely nothing to back up your claims. It's almost as if you're talking shit in a big icy forest. I would come up with a weather-related pun, but trying to think of one has been snow joke. Good night, folks. I'll catch you next time.